we are going to continue to shine a spotlight on some of the big stories that are, of course, taking precedence today. We know the GNU discussions continue to dominate the headlines, and the arrangement has been rocked due to various issues which remain unresolved, including that of the most recent VAT hike implementation. So the ANC and the DA will continue meeting following the political and economic impasse. And so Professor Lesiba Teffo this morning, a political analyst, is going to be joining us to weigh in further. Prof. Lesiba, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the SABC at this hour.
Greetings to you, Lizelle, and the viewers at home.
Prof, it's interesting times that we are entering as a country, given the dynamics that are unfolding. And from your vantage point, I think a good point of departure is just looking at the ongoing meetings that are occurring. Given the trust deficit, I wonder if that can be restored. The fact that there is a willingness to discuss means that dialogue is still open. That is a good start. But in any event, relationships, as we know, it takes time. And so this marriage that we've now witnessed with GNU is just over 9 months old after it came into effect in June. So the dynamics are really playing itself out. How would you like to weigh in on what we are observing?
For me, nothing is unexpected. Uncharted terrain. Navigate these waters, we have not been there before. But being the beneficiaries of higher education and political experiences in other parts of the world, we should do better. And I think we are doing well so far. I'm one of those who continue to say there will be contours, there will be tempest, there will be challenges along the highway, but they are not insurmountable. We shall overcome, right? Some words come to mind now that it always seems impossible until it is done. I have no doubt that the DA needs the ANC and the ANC needs the DA. And the beloved country needs both to work together.
Okay, so speaking about working together, I wonder how you'd weigh in on, just given the previous interactions and tactics that had been employed in some of the other alliances, the grievances that have come about over the years. And yes, this is a unique context, but what are some of those lessons that we should be learning in handling this particular juncture? I'm also asking this because we're looking at everyone's role. And the DA in particular, it's now an opposition force that also holds ministries. And so when we're looking at who it appeases, its constituencies versus the national interests or positions that it holds, what's also been reflected about that, particularly as we look at the court challenges, the impasse over the VAT hike, amongst other issues?
I appreciate what the ANC goes through right now. The loss of political power, I haven't tasted that in my life. That's why people tend to think it's quite easy for me to speak my language because I don't know what it means. There are laws thereof. Once you have it, you don't want to at least dispose of it or get rid of. Now, given that, they have to make peace with the fact that they are no longer the ruling party. They are not in charge of the country. They are not the leader of society. Yes, once upon a time they were, but not today. If they can make that mental transition, that mind shift, that mental paradigm that says, yes, this is a new territory, this is a new terrain, right? We have partners with whom we must work. And the partners too must recognize that they are not in the opposition, they are now in co-governance. There will be challenges, but they must seek in national interest to always find common ground. Hence, in their statement of intent, emphasis was on sufficient consensus. Given that, the DA must appreciate that it's not an opposition party, it's in co-governance. And the ANC must appreciate that it's no longer the leader of government, but it is in co-governance. And there are other smaller Nyana parties. They too must appreciate that commensurate to their electoral base or support, they will be given space to make input. But I would hate to see a day a one-party man and 1% party decides the fate of the country. If the DA and the ANT don't find each other, they will end up with dysfunctional experiences like we had in the municipalities, where a blind envelope can bring down a government or a municipality overnight.
Yeah,
These two must find a way to work together. The country needs
Yes, because we're envisioning what the future of South Africa is looking like, and we've seen the precedents that has been set, with coalitions on a local government level. It's obviously not a happy picture. It's looking bleak, and so I wonder at this point if we're going to look at if the GNU does collapse or fail, who takes responsibility or blame for that, and if we look at the dynamics, if the ANC and the DA fail to resolve this impasse, what happens to Parliament? What happens to its makeup? What happens to the MPs, the portfolio committees as well? Talk to us about those implications. Really, what's at stake?
And I don't want to talk about those implications and scenarios because they will never eventuate. Okay. From my vantage point, we'll never reach that point. Okay. These two are going to find each other. These two understands there is much to lose if their marriage were to break down. There are many by the wayside who are rooting for the failure and collapse of the GNU. And the leadership, both in the ANC and DA, are aware of that. But a bigger picture is the one that says there is more to lose, all of us, if we were to go separate ways. The scenario that you people want to talk about, and I'm less inclined to, is what if it collapses? Because I don't go there because I know it is not going to collapse. I'm campaigned for this 15 years ago on coalition government, and we have this one, and the coalition governments across the globe work so well as long as there is political literacy and political maturity. I often ask even those in parliament, do you know that Germany under Merkel was to a large extent run successfully by that lady, but with a coalition? In Italy, they can have 5 governments within a year, right? But because there is a separation of powers in this sense of the word, politicians keep to their terrain, administrators keep to their lane, the career diplomats keep to their lane. Don't conflate the positions and then you say the state is dysfunctional. I cannot see any permutation that will work better to the exclusion of the DA. You can try, but you are going to have a very unstable and dysfunctional government.
All right, so there are various, to your point, there are various possibilities and probabilities, and if we are going to be anticipating what's to come, yes, there is an imaginary crystal ball, but those talks are obviously underway with the DA. Tomorrow it's the Freedom Front Plus. So as they resolve what needs to be resolved for the greater good of our country, also just given the shifting geopolitical dynamics, I wonder if we can also just look at the issue of some of the bills that had been passed, obviously having passed constitutional muster and can't be reversed. GNU government, it is not a replacement for the parliament and its processes as well. I wonder if we're looking at the rationale behind what's unfolding on that front in relation to those bills that had been signed in, particularly because the DA, whilst loyal to its constituencies, have ministers in those ministries that have to enforce it. How do they balance that? What's coming to the fore on that front?
I hear people say, but before I answer that question, let me talk about the permutations that I think people are more inclined to hearing when people like me speak. Okay. I cannot see the ANC being at peace with working with the EFF or the MK party, precisely because the two parties are all out to destroy them. They know that they are founded on that anger, objective, and mission. And they will do whatever they can, right? Never mind the pretenses to the contrary. But I know deep in their hearts, they wouldn't want to work with those two parties. That said, let's come back to are they going to implement or not to implement? They will implement, right? But again, there are certain positions and then legislation that, in my view, can be amended, right, that are inconsequential, especially the Bella Act for me, let me tell you, let me just nail my colors to the mast.
Okay.
The Bella Act, I don't see much value in it, to the extent that it doesn't speak to the advancements, development, and protection of indigenous language systems. Somebody might say from the other party, it's all about getting rid of Afrikaans. Get rid of it, and then what? I'm more for the development and advancement of indigenous language in concurrence with Afrikaans. Afrikaans was not a language of science and technology. It was developed about 70 years ago, but in 50 years' time, it managed to produce the first heart transplant in Afrikaans under the sun. May the soul of Chris Barnard rest in peace. That said, the NHI, I am for it. Philosophically, ideologically, I am for it. But when can you implement it? Surely not in the next 20 years or 30 years.
Okay.
Deal with the dysfunctional hospital. Deal with the infrastructure there. Then thereafter, you might ask yourself, maybe it's not even necessary to go that route. 30 years ago, all the hospitals were functional. The infrastructure was okay.
Okay, Prof.
What went wrong?
Well, more questions and answers at this point, but we are obviously monitoring those developments as that meeting gets underway. Prof, thank you for your time at the Sound for weighing in. We'll leave it there. Prof Lesiba Teffo this morning, political analyst, chatting about the ongoing GNU discussions as various political parties, of course, meet to resolve the impasse due to several issues.